What's going on YouTube? So I got a question from a single mother who's raising her black son. He's 14. I believe he's 14. And she wanted to know what she can do because, he's right at that age where things start to break down. When he was younger, when he was a child and he was a preteen, their relationship was great. He always listened. They were buddies. They were friends. But now that he's a little bit older, she can already start to see that, there's a disconnect forming because he's at that age where, he's starting to think about who he's going to be as a man. Okay? So she asked me, do I have any tips and, any words that I can give her? And the first thing I have to say is, if you have any older men in your family, I would encourage you to foster a relationship between them. A lot of the times, it isn't that people, don't want to help, but sometimes they don't want to butt in. But if they're invited, they'll come through, especially if you're dealing with family or friends. Come through and say, hey, can you take, my son out to get something to eat or just to the park and talk to him? Right? There's nothing wrong in, us doing that. Especially, like I said, if they're in your family or somebody you can trust, just say, hey, can you take him out, get something to eat, and just, have somebody pick his brain and see where he's at, so that he can have somebody that he can turn to, not so that you can be in the middle of the relationship, but somebody that he can go to on his own without you being there. He's going to need that, right? We need that person. We need that older brother that we can turn to. It's not for you to know what they talk about. Just know that he has somebody to turn to. Somebody else to, know what's going on with them, so if he's falling off, they can spot it. So like I said, if you have, any older brothers or uncles or anybody in the area, I don't know your relationship with the father, but, it's highly recommended that there is some sort of older black male influence in his life. But of course, that may not be an option. So, another alternative, it's not even another alternative. This is what you should do as well. Understand that you can only be his mother. Sometimes single mothers get caught up in the whole idea of, I was your father and I was your mother. And it's a little bit, how can I put it? It's more, that comment does more for you than it does for the child. It makes you feel good, but it doesn't mean anything for the child, especially if it's a male. It sounds funny if I said I'm a single father, but I tell my son or daughter that I was your father and I was your mother. It's kind of awkward for me to say that simply because how can I be somebody's mother when clearly that is the role of a woman? Okay, so a lot of the times you're disrespecting your son by saying that, I don't need to be a man to show you how to be one. That's how we're going to take it. Even when my parents split, that's how I always took it. When my mom tried to say, I was your mother and your father, I always got disrespected because there's a lot of conversations that we didn't have. And she assumed that she knew everything in terms of what it meant to be a man. And you don't. And it's not your fault. You're not supposed to. Right? There's conversations that men have that women don't even know we have. And they're not supposed to. Just, mother and daughters have conversations that I don't know about. Right? And I wouldn't even think to bring up. And it's okay because, once again, it's not my place. Okay? So, your son definitely needs direction, values, morals, and all that other stuff. But you have to remember, there are key things that you get from a man. And most of the time, a lot of young men don't understand it. And sometimes they do. A lot of the times they get frustrated and upset because they need somebody to turn to. They have questions, but they're not there. And they know they can't ask you because, quite frankly, you don't have the answer. You can act like you do, but if I ask you a really, man-based type question, I know you're not going to have the answer. And it's okay. Right? If I'm a son growing up without my father, I'm going to be a little bit upset. But in terms of my mother, I'm not going to get too mad because I understand that she can't necessarily be that father figure. How can she? And the problem isn't all the time that the father isn't there. The problem is the mother feels like she is the father. And like I said, it's very disrespectful to a young man trying to figure out who he is. It's very disrespectful to, say that as a woman, I can guide you in this process. Because it almost seems laughable if a man said that to a woman. I can only imagine, like, if I was ever a single father raising a daughter, how many conversations that we're not having. So I wouldn't even dare necessarily say that I'm your father and your mother, because it would be disrespectful to my daughter. And I would already assume that she would know that I am not, her mother. Okay, so, kids are smarter than what you think they are. So I would be real. I would be honest. I would say, you know what? I understand that, your mother's not around. And there's a lot of things that a woman needs to tell you that I can't. Okay, so I'm going to do my best. But I am aware of your feelings. A lot of the times, the single mothers aren't aware of their son's feelings. It's not about getting his hair cut. It's not about buying him new clothes, new Jordans, new Nikes, new Air Forces, Dunks. It's not about that. It's not about getting him a sidekick and a PS3 and an Xbox. That's not what manhood's about. That's why half of these men out here are quote-unquote mama's boys. Literally, they are mama's boys. I went to high school with a whole bunch of them. Even now, they are mama's boys. They don't know how to stand on their own. So you should be happy at least that your son is rebelling, because he's recognizing that he needs a man in his life. A lot of young black men don't even understand that they need a father in their life, and they buy in to the whole idea of their mother being their father as well. So now their whole fatherhood is based off of what their mother told them. So in a nutshell, don't be too alarmed in terms of how your son feels. Your best bet is to be honest with him. Let him know that you're entering a phase in your life, okay, where you're trying to define yourself, and I don't want to disrespect you. All I can do is teach you what I know as a mother, as a woman, okay, and sometimes that may be all he needs. But like I said, if you can find a family member, somebody close that you can trust, that can just sit down with the boy every now and then, go out to lunch, to Starbucks, it will go a long way. Right? Somebody just to say, hey, hit me up if there's an issue. Right? If things are getting too tough and you want to come kick it, stay the night or something, hit me up. That means a lot. Because it's showing him that you're attempting to accept his feelings and accept the fact that there are things that I can't teach him. Right? It will make your relationship that much better. Alright? So, hopefully those words will help you out with dealing with your son. So give me some feedback. Anybody else who's listening to this, give me your feedback, give me your take, give me your opinion. Take it easy. God bless.